there's a lot of optimism around what's going to be eaten. And then unfortunately, the reality is that it does go off.
So our target for this year is 12 million tonnes. So the bigger the tonnage, the better.
The sky's the limit how we go there, but I think there's so many opportunities in supply chain interventions. It's an area we need to basically amplify and activate, and that's what we're doing.
Hello and welcome to Food Waste Matters, where we focus on turning waste into worth. I'm your host, Dr. Joanne Freeman from Honey and Fox, and we're here to uncover the stories of businesses, experts and innovators who are turning food waste into value. So whether it's reducing waste in the supply chain, repurposing surplus waste, or finding creative ways to minimise our environmental footprint, our 2024 Food Waste series will be showcasing the solutions and the successes that can help us all in the fight against food waste. So in today's episode, we'll be finding out about the three various but equally important food waste research programs facilitated by End Food Waste Australia. But firstly, who is End Food Waste Australia? They are a cooperative research centre with a vision to see Australia without food waste, starting with halving food waste by 2030, which is quite a significant target. So their project funding model involves matching dollar for dollar industry participant contribution to undertake research, education, extension and commercialisation activities in partnership with research institutions like universities and government research departments. There are three research programs, and they are the Engage program, the Transform program, and the Reduce program. So first up, we'll be speaking with Professor David Pearson, who heads up the Engage program, and he's going to be telling us about all the work that has been done to date to understand our behaviours as consumers around food waste. And he's also going to introduce some interventions to help change these behaviours. And then next we'll be talking with Francesca Goodman-Smith, who leads the Transform program. She'll be sharing with us some great examples of industry transforming their waste into other value-added products. And lastly, we'll hear from Associate Professor Simon Lockrey about his quest to reduce big food loss and waste. And we're also going to hear about his research focus for 2024, which will be working with the supply chain, particularly in the horticulture sector. So watch this space. So welcome to Food Waste Matters, David. First off, I'm really keen to find out exactly what the Engage program is doing and also what we can expect from you and your team in 2024.
Fabulous, Joe. Look, it's great to have this opportunity to share with you and the audience. It's been a really exciting couple of years. And in terms of the shape of the Engage program at the moment, we're totally focused on you and me, all of us, what we do at home and when we go out to eat. And it's all around helping us to reduce food waste in those two contexts. What does that look like and why is that so important? Well, scary as it is, 30% of all food wasted in Australia happens in our homes. 30% of the weight. And if we measure that in terms of economic value, it's just over 50%. So there's an enormous prize for the nation if we can reduce that food waste. And we in the Engage program are all about undertaking research, impactful research that can help decision makers to make it easier for all of us to reduce food waste in our homes and when we go out to eat.
And David, do you think consumers or households are aware just how much food waste they waste each and every day?
This is one of the fascinating things we've found through the research we've undertaken. People are aware of food waste, and they have a very strong sense that it's bad, it's wrong, but they always think it's someone else who's wasting the food. So there's little awareness of the individual's actual contribution in this space. And that's one of the enormous challenges for me and my teams and the people who are running the interventions, to help bring that awareness to the actions that each of us take every day. And we never intend to waste the food, but it's a consequence of a whole lot of small decisions that are made, and ultimately, tragically, some of that food that's purchased with good intentions around being eaten, but it just doesn't get eaten, and unfortunately, therefore, it's disposed of. And that's a tragedy. That's a loss. That's a tragedy because it's a loss of human potential.
And David, talking about interventions, what type of interventions have you been able to recommend so far?
Well, moving into the impact of research that we've done over the recent years, and by far the biggest and most significant piece of research that the Engage program led was what we lovingly call the Household Project. So this was an incredibly comprehensive, in fact, the most comprehensive research ever undertaken in Australia, investigating households from the perspective of trying to understand what is happening with food provisioning, and more importantly, what can be done to reduce the amount of food waste. Within that project, we were able to identify the behaviours that are leading to food waste, and the three most important behaviours, and these are the behaviours, if we can improve them, we can definitely have a big impact. We can shift the dial on reducing food waste. And it was a surprise to me in terms of what they were. The first, the most important, is cooking. It's actually preparing the right amount of food. Second, it's actually when you're planning your shopping, to think of a bit of flexibility in that plan. A lot of evidence to say that people shop with good intentions, and they even plan the meals and the food required for the meals, but then unexpected things happen. And as a consequence of those unexpected things, there's more food in the house than they actually eat in that shopping cycle, and unfortunately, a lot of that got wasted. And the third is the old favourite. It's been around for a long time. It's easy to understand, and that's leftovers. Find a way of using up those leftovers. One of the great ways of doing that is to have a section in the fridge, which is, if you like, an eat me up first section.
One of the things that I just found absolutely fascinating about this research, and I do it now, and I'm spreading the love, is, I don't plan to cook or shop for 7 days. And I mean, that just sounds so basic, but it actually works. So I only usually shop and prepare and cook 4 to 5 nights a week, but I have food for 7 nights. And then it's only my husband and I at home. So even though my fridge usually looks fairly empty, I always have heaps of yummy food to eat. And I said that to my daughter, who, she's married and has 2 children and working full time. And I said the same thing to her. Now she's implementing that intervention. And she said, not only do they have food every night, and it means she doesn't have to cook every night, but she's saving lots of money.
Jo, you've hit so many high points in that little vignette. Thank you for sharing that story. First one I'll draw attention to, all of us are wasting food. So we can't blame it on your daughter and other people in a similar situation in their life cycle. No doubt about it, when you have young kids in the family, in the household, more mouths to feed, more preferences to deal with, more complexity, and probably a lot more concern about a healthy diet and making sure the children have things that they're happy to eat. And certainly they do. Households with young children on a per capita basis do waste a little bit more. But even people like yourself, what we'd call the empty nesters, a couple, children have left home, evidence says that you guys still waste food. So it is really a situation where everyone in the nation needs to step forward and needs to help. And then what is the food that we waste the most of? Big mystery to me. When we did the research, I wasn't sure. And interestingly, if we look at it from a value and a weight point of view, it's fresh vegetables. That's the food category more than any of the other ones, which is where most of the waste is occurring, even more than fruit. Fresh vegetables is where the space is. So the interventions that focus on reducing waste of fresh vegetables are not only likely to save households money, which is one of the key motivators, but they're also most likely to have a positive impact on reducing the nation's food waste.
David, on that note with fruit and vegetables, why do you think that is the biggest category in food waste?
Well, food waste normally occurs because the product goes off. So it's perishable products that are the ones that are often, that are the most commonly wasted. And with vegetables, I think there's a lot of good intentions, and there's a lot of concern around diet and getting enough vitamins and other healthy minerals into our bodies. So when it comes to the purchase point, there's a lot of optimism around what's going to be eaten. And then unfortunately, the reality is that it does go off, it does perish, it's no longer suitable for consumption. And so there's a real tension there. Fresh is best from a health perspective, and certainly I would be keen to encourage that. But I think it's the modest purchasing at the beginning, it's the realistic purchasing, and which is the critical point at which input needs to be made to help reduce food waste of particularly vegetables in households.
So David, for 2024, what's the biggest focus for the Engage program?
What we love doing in the Engage program is what I call game changer projects. So what's a game changer project? That is a project that's likely to have a really big impact on reducing food waste. And our experience tells us that typically, but not always, these game changer projects are a collaboration with influential stakeholders, often enacted over multiple years and with budgets in excess of $500,000. So it's the game changer project, which is where we get most excited. It's where we put most of our effort. It's where we feel End Food Waste Australia and the CRC within End Food Waste Australia is uniquely placed to be able to have a significant contribution.
So David, just finally, how can people get involved?
Look, if you or your organisation has an interest in helping consumers reduce food waste in their homes or when they're eating out, please feel free to reach out or to me or any of my colleagues in End Food Waste Australia. We'd love to have a chat with you, and maybe within that space you have questions, and maybe some of those questions are places where research can really help you and your colleagues find answers. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so let's get into the next session and welcome Francesca to Food Waste Matters. Francesca, thanks for joining us today. Now, I'm really excited to hear about what's happening in the Transform program and where you and your team are hoping to take the program for the coming year.
Thanks, Joanne. Really excited to talk with you at the start of this year. We've got a lot of plans for 2024. I think it's going to be a big year for the team and for the organisation as a whole. Food waste is building so much momentum. More and more people are talking about it. We're seeing so much action from government, from state governments. It's really, really exciting to bring the industry together to design these solutions for food waste. So I think we've got a few key goals for the year. One is around all new projects that we're developing. We really want to make sure they're hitting our big impact target of reducing tons of food waste. So our target for this year is 12 million tons. So the bigger the tonnage, the better. We really want to focus on projects that are going to bring that tonnage down.
So it's just on that. Are you focused with reducing food waste in the consumer space, or really with industry?
Yeah, so this is across the whole supply chain. This is for the whole organisation, the 12 million tonnes for the year, and that's in new projects that are being developed. So across the 3 R&D programs, the Reduce, the Transform, and the Engage. So with industry, but also looking at the household level as well.
And can you share with us, Francesca, some of the successes, some of your research outputs that industry have embedded in their business to help reduce food waste?
Absolutely. I think we've got some great examples from projects that have been completed and various actions that have been taken. So we worked with a producer of field peas called A.G. Schilling & Co., and they did a series of different product development trials with Sardi in South Australia. And now they've employed a product development manager to take those formulations and start to develop new products that they can then market and sell. So that's a really exciting output. Another one is our potato project, which was a investigation between a consortium of potato growers in South Australia. They had a report written for them, which was on commercial feasibility of setting up a potato starch plant. And so now they're using that information to help make investment decisions for the future for their industry. So that's really exciting too. Another example as well is that the Leaf Protein Co., who are a really innovative startup company, they're creating protein, plant-based protein from green leafy waste. And so they're actually setting up a pilot plant facility now, and then we're doing some more work with them to help get their ingredient commercially ready. So it's really exciting to see the results from this research being taken forward and supporting big expansion for companies, and looking at new business opportunities, and also refining some of the preliminary research that's been done.
And so what are some of the big projects for this year for the Transform team?
So some of the big projects this year, we're looking at developing a sector-wide program of work on horticulture. So that is a sort of a second stage project from the Horticulture Sector Action Plan that's been conducted over the past year. And this is going to be a big game-changing project with a collaboration across state governments and hort innovation and research providers and industry to really work together on some of the big thorny issues and start to drive those big reductions in tonnage of food waste. Another area that I am very keen to work on this year is building a community around upcycling, so creating new products from food waste. We're seeing activity happen in lots of small pockets, but from my research that I did overseas this year, we found that it was really hard to actually promote these products in isolation or drive consumer awareness or momentum without having some sort of national kind of coordination or organization of all of the businesses who are playing in that space. So we do really want to support industry, and building a community and a network around this is one way that we can do that.
So exciting times ahead for the Transform team.
Really exciting times ahead. And our other thing that we're really focused on is projects that have already been completed or are getting close to completion. We've got 7 projects due to be completed in the first half of this year. So a lot of action happening there. And we really want to support our teams to get the research results out there, or if it's confidential research results, support them on their journey to implementation and finding new partners. We really want to generate the impact from the research. So that's a huge focus for us this year, is finding ways to really support that delivery of research outputs, policy recommendations, getting them to the policymakers, and, information that can be shared widely, singing that from the rooftops. So yeah, we want to focus on that this year.
And so, Francesca, how can businesses or other industry associations get involved?
There's a few different ways people can get involved. I think the best starting point is to just have a conversation with us. So if a company has a research need or an organisation has a research need, we can help shape up those ideas and link them with other partners who might be working on similar things. If they need more help in, identifying targets and setting an action plan for their business, then we can help them look at options with the Australian Food Pact. And then I guess companies can also, sign up to our mailing list on the End Food Waste Australia website just to keep abreast of opportunities that are coming up as well. So I think a conversation, keeping up to date with what's happening within the organisation and broader opportunities, and then coming along to our summit, which is happening in July in Melbourne this year, and hearing from industry leaders about the steps that they've taken around food waste minimisation.
Well, thanks very much for speaking with us today. I look forward to hearing from you again later in the year for another update on the Transform program. But once again, thanks very much, Francesca, for joining us today.
Thanks, Jo.
Hello, Simon, and welcome to Food Waste Matters. Now, I'm really excited to hear what is going on in the Reduce program for 2024.
Thanks, Joanne, and thanks for having us on the podcast. It's exciting times at Reduce. So the team's all back, and we've started a whole lot of new business development interactions, which is fantastic. That's what we're really excited about, with a whole pipeline of new projects on the agenda. But just a bit of reflection on where we're at with some of the current work. There are a range of sector action plans that are being conducted by RMIT, University of Adelaide, and a whole lot of industry stakeholders, as well as our Food Pact team, to try and get to the bottom of issues to do with the food services industry. So hospitals and aged care, catering, cafes and restaurants, and also quick service restaurants, which are a very different type of restaurant. Now, that work will lead to a whole lot of new projects, we hope, action-based projects, after this mapping of the issues at play where food waste occurs in these contexts, and then hopefully a whole lot of industry and government stakeholders will take carriage of that, and that will lead to some more amazing projects in the food services space. So watch that space.
So, Simon, just to clarify, what do you mean by action-based projects?
So the sector action plans are plans for action. There'll be a result of those projects with a roadmap of different types of projects that look to act on the recommendations of those plans. So, it may be anything from changes to practices in the kitchens, it may be about ordering, it may be about supply chain tools or data sharing, and that will require a series of actions and interactions between actors and potentially other types of social infrastructure and social structures like tools and platforms. So, yeah, that's what I mean by actions, and we are hoping there'll be a range of really great action-based projects after these plans are made.
And so, Simon, how do you get people engaged with these types of projects?
Well, the CRC and End Food Waste Australia more generally has a fantastic network of food companies, governments, peak bodies, etc. So we go out and engage from a program perspective to try and get them to interact with these what are quite complex stakeholder projects. But also we have a range of researchers across our 12 research organisations that help us with that work too. They have their own networks, but also, they're encouraged to go out and do these engagements, because at the end of the day, then they run the research projects, which they're tasked to do as part of their roles. So it's sort of a collaboration really between us at End Food Waste Australia and the Food Pact team and the programs, so the Reduce program, and those research teams to go out to stakeholders we know of or new ones to try and bring them into the fold. And those action plan projects are incorporating a whole range of stakeholders. Really exciting ones, the Cafe Lab in RMIT, where we've actually got a physical cafe space, and we're going to be able to prototype and investigate and test out ideas, which you would expect with action-based projects afterwards will be quite an amazing sort of space to maybe deploy some of those projects too.
And so what's Simon's number one priority project this year? What's getting you out of bed this year, Simon?
Well, I think I announced it last year at our event, our conference late last year, Joanne, where you were as well. We at Reduce see a number of our themes that we investigate going really well. So we're doing really well in the food charity space, doing really well around data and tools and measurement, although there's more to be done there as well, as with food charities. And also our packaging stream is really great as well, with a new criteria and some new projects on the agenda. But our third theme around supply chain innovation, prototyping and scaling isn't probably as far ahead as we'd like it to be. So my focus this year is really to try and activate that theme and get more projects from farm to retail. So food processing, logistics, cold chain, farm, pack house, all those kind of contexts, and potentially across those contexts in individual projects as well as across a suite of projects. And the way we're doing that is we've set up a core research team. Core research team is a structure we've set up for food service as well a few years ago. It's an active space for researchers, for industry partners and government agents to come together and propose what projects need to be done, what they want to do, what they're capable of doing from a research perspective, and then nutting out those projects and putting them into the CRC for provisional approval and then development and then deployment. And we're having our first meeting for them very shortly. We have a range of stakeholders across universities, research departments in state governments, as well as state government departments separate from the research arms in agriculture, environment, etc., as well as some peak bodies and other research providers outside of the CRC who are interested too in interacting. So it'll be really interesting, Joanne, to see how those projects are going to develop. I would say, though, in our business development pipeline, there's a number of projects in that space, in that third theme about supply chain intervention and innovation and scaling that are coming through the pipeline as we speak, even before that core research team meets. So hopefully that call to action we had at the end of last year has really activated the interest in a range of our stakeholders. It seems like it because there are a range of projects that we're starting to see developed, some around horticulture and supply chains around fruit, some shelf life extension projects, technology projects, and some other data and tool-based projects. So, look, the sky's the limit how we go there, but I think there's so many opportunities in supply chain interventions. It's an area we need to basically amplify and activate, and that's what we're doing.
That it's going to be a challenging area as well. Recently, I've been to regional South Australia, speaking with a lot of the growers and the supply chain, and hearing about some of their challenges and also opportunities that they see. But there is going to be some significant challenges getting them to all agree along the supply chain and all work together for the greater good, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, any complex system is hard to maneuver, but I think there are ways, and when there's means and also goodwill and intent, coalition of the willing is a nice term that we throw up in the food bank.
And some champions.
And some champions. And those champions need to basically drive it forward. And the lovely thing, Joanne, is we've had some really great champions in some of these projects about to come online, and they're quite large projects relatively to some of the other projects we've had in Reduce. And really, it's been through engaging those stakeholders ongoing and making sure we can provide them support, additional details. Maybe we've had to even pivot some of those projects that haven't quite worked one way. Maybe they'll work another. But that requires engagement, collaboration, and will. And like you said, if we don't have champions, there's no point.
And I think you've answered my next question. I'm always interested, having an academic background myself, always interested to see how academics actually interact with, the farmers or the supply chain on the ground.
Yeah, great. I mean, the current project that's just sort of finalising at the moment is this horticulture action plan from the Transform team. although there's a range of projects that come out of that are very reduce program relevant, as you'd expect if we're going to reduce food loss and waste in the horticulture sector. And look, those researchers had to interact with all sorts of different stakeholders on the ground. That's what we're seeing now with the food service sector action plans in quick service restaurants and in cafes, etc. Our researchers flying to other states, interacting in the kitchen or in the reverse upstream, downstream supply chains as well. So, I think my key terminology for this is pracademic. We need pracademics that actually want to do practical work and be on the ground, action-based. Often it is a bit of action research, along with some of the more theoretical, but also practical outcomes that we want to achieve as a CRC and more broadly as End Food Waste Australia.
So what's the one message that you could leave our viewers, Simon, with your Reduce hat on, your Reduce program leaders hat on?
We're open for business and we're keen to hear your ideas for projects along the whole supply chain, anything from practical projects on the ground through to data and digital transformation, and also quantitative and qualitative work. We basically have a broad church here and we're open for business. So come and talk to us about your ideas for big food loss and waste reduction projects. That's what we're in the business of delivering, and that's what we want to see in the next 2 to 3 years to achieve our targets of halving food waste by 2030, driving industry profitability, feeding hungry people, training the leaders of the future, and also training industry and building their capacity to do so.
So you heard that, viewers. The pracademics are open for business. So Simon, if they wanted to contact you or their team, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to contact us at End Food Waste Australia is to go through our inquiries team. There's an inquiries email and form online on our website, and that will get through to us. I would just flag with your inquiry that it's a reduced program, a project or opportunity that you want to explore. And describe that. And that will get through to my team and we'll be able to then reach out to you and work out a time to talk.
So, Simon, I just want to say thank you very much. There's exciting times ahead for the Reduce program and certainly lots happening. And I look forward to speaking with you again at the end of the year as we reflect on what's been achieved. So thank you very much. And I look forward to continually monitoring what's going on in the Reduce program.
Thanks, Joanne. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So we've just heard from the 3 program leaders of End Food Waste Australia. So if you're wanting to get your big food waste and loss idea in front of the End Food Waste team, firstly, go to their website, www.endfoodwaste.com.au, and have a look at previous research projects and also projects currently in the pipeline to see if there's an opportunity for you there, or if you want to bring your idea to the team's attention, just email inquiries@endfoodwaste.com.au. So that's the end of our episode today, and a big thank you to the program leaders from End Food Waste Australia for both sharing their insights and also hopefully inspiring us to think differently about what we do with our food waste. It is clear there's lots we can do, whether it's a big or small contribution, to make sure we're part of the solution and not the problem. So to stay up to date with all things Food Waste Matters, you can sign up to get notified each time a new episode is published. Just head over to our website, www.foodwastematters.com.au, to subscribe. You'll also find there our full podcast archive, which includes show notes and guest contact details. And of course, if you have any questions, feedback, or you'd like to be a guest on our show, feel free to reach out to us at foodwastematters@honeyandfox.com.au. Remember, the fight against food waste is a collective effort and we're all in it together. So until next time, keep up the fight.